Is Claude Code better than Cursor while using Claude's own models? In my opinion, yes, especially if you're using a Claude Max plans. Stick around to find out why. For context, both Claude Code and Cursor are agentic AI development tools that help you write code. Cursor is developed by the Cursor team, and it's based on Visual Studio Code, so it's got a very familiar graphical user interface. When you open it, on the left-hand side, you'll see your code, your repository files, and on the right-hand side, you have the AI panel that you can use to interact with your AI models. Because Cursor is not directly affiliated with any model developers, you can use any models in Cursor. They offer Claude models from Anthropic, Gemini models from Google, and O3, O4 models from OpenAI. You can even add your own models using the API backend. Now, do keep in mind, if you were to do that, then you'd be paying the API per token use, and that can get expensive very quickly. The reason to use Cursor is its unbeatable, ridiculous value proposition at the moment. You pay $20 for 500 premium requests on certain models and unlimited slow requests thereafter. And from my experience, the slow requests aren't that much slower. You can still get stuff done, so that's not something to fret about. And, we're probably at a stage where venture capitalists are pouring billions of dollars into the AI race, hoping to catch some gold. And we as consumers at the moment benefit from it quite tremendously. And I don't know if you remember, back in the days when Uber had this $5 anywhere in town deal, even in bigger cities, that was a ridiculous deal. And that's where we are right now with AI. So Cursor offers you the ability to take advantage of the venture capitalists' money to use the AI models. Now, do keep in mind that Cursor limits your access to certain models in its subscription. So for instance, for Claude, you can use Sonnet, and that's included in your 500 premium requests and slow requests thereafter. But if you wanted to use Opus, you cannot. You have to pay per tool call. And last time I checked, it was 30 cents per tool call. Now, what is a tool call? A tool call is when the LLM, the large language model, your AI model, wants to do things that it cannot do. For instance, if it needs to look up things on the internet, look up the latest documentation, and every time it does an internet query, that's a one tool call. So as you can see, if you want to actually pay per tool call, that can get costly very easily. And just for comparison, some of my shorter queries can easily be 5 to 10 tool calls. And if I forget to limit the scope of my queries, they can swell well over 20 tool calls. I know that's not the most ideal way to query an AI model, but once you fire off the query, it just runs and it starts charging your account. So you'd be paying through your nose quite dearly if you were to use those tool calls in those non-included models. And this is where Claude Code steps in. Claude Code, on the other hand, is developed by Anthropic, the same people that made Claude models. And as you can imagine, as a result of that, you're limited to Claude models only. So far, I believe that it defaults to either Sonnet and Opus. I'm not sure if you can use Haiku, but you're writing a program, why use Haiku, right? Claude, unlike Cursor, charges a lot more for its use. Up until very recently, you have to use a Claude Max plan to be able to use Claude Code. And recently, Anthropic released your ability to use Claude Code only on a Claude Pro subscription. And for context, Claude Pro is $20. It's the same price as Cursor's subscription. However, on Claude Pro, you can only use Sonnet in Claude Code. And in my opinion, if you were to use Claude Code, you have to use Opus. You have to use Opus. And if you were to use Opus, you have to be at least on the first tier of the Claude Max plan, which costs $100 a month. And if your usage is anywhere meaningful, you might have to jump up to the $200 per month plan. Now, why use Opus? Claude has two models, right? Sonnet and Opus. Both are actually pretty good at writing programs. And if your goal is to write any trivial one-shot programs, like those that are typically showcased in AI reviews by AI review YouTubers, both would actually perform pretty well. And There's some evidence to suggest that Sonnet actually outperforms Opus in those tests. The problem is, Sonnet's performance deteriorates pretty quickly once you start expanding its context. In other words, once you start feeding the AI models more and more information, Sonnet starts to just not reason as well. However, on the other hand, Opus continues to perform as well, even up to its upper limit of its context window. Now, you might think 200K context window is something to worry about because it's so huge, you'll never hit it. The problem is that you might hit it sooner than you think. For instance, what's in the context, your system prompt, that can be very, very long if you have a very comprehensive system prompt. The part of the code that your AI model needs to be aware of when it's making changes, that needs to be in the context. New documentation that are fetched online, that needs to be in the context. Backend code, when you're making changes in the front-end code because it needs to know how to correspond with the backend code, needs to be in the context. So the context actually swells up very quickly, much more quickly than you think. So when you're working on any non-trivial project with a full stack, your front end, your back end, your database, your tests, your deployment and everything, Sonnet just can't handle it nearly as well. Opus is the name of the game. If you want to use Opus on Cursor, you pay through your nose. You pay through your nose. In a day's development, you can easily spend $100 to $200. And with the same amount of money in Claude Code, you get unlimited access to Opus. That's why, at this moment, I still recommend Claude Code. I shouldn't say I still recommend Claude Code because, not long ago, I was just using Cursor and I was pretty happy about it. I think this highlights the last point I want to make. This video is recorded in June 2025. The AI world is moving so fast that by the time you watch this video, things 100% would be very different. And that's why we should revisit this very often. And I'll see you next time when one of those talks happens again. Talk to you later.